Stop recording video. Button.
Take picture. Stop recording video. Button. Speech off. Howdy, folks. We are here once again live from the basement. And yes, I know you're sideways. And yes, you're staying that way because you're plugged in. And as per the usual, you're listening, not watching. So here we are with another version or episode or whatever you want to call this of the, I guess we're just going to call it online book club because Neil Residence isn't really where I'm at anymore. But anyway, we're still doing it, and it's here, whatever it's called, we're here with the book club. And we have a semi-different book that I didn't know existed that just came in the mail the other day. So to switch it up a wee little bit, we're going to read, instead of one of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid Gregified books, we're going to try this one on for size. It's called Diary of a Awesome Friendly Kid, Rowley Jefferson's Journal. And it's by Jeff Kinney. So let's get this show on the ROAD. Just gotta find where we're at here. Hold on, there's weird stuff in here. Copyright, nobody cares. Where's the start of the book? Is there a start of the book? Book quality, nobody worries about that either. At least I hope they don't, because if they do, that's too bad, eh? Copyright something, Puffin Books. Nope, man alive. A lot of junk in here. Oh, hold the phone. My first entry. Hi, I'm Rowley Jefferson, and this is my diary. I hope you like it so far. Wow, yes. I decided to start a journal because my best friend Greg Heffley has one, and we usually do the same stuff. Oh yeah, I should mention that me and Greg are image brackety thing. Greg and Rowley and brackety thing. I'm sure you're probably like, well, tell me something about this Greg guy. But my book isn't about him. It's about me. The reason I called my book Diary of an Awesome Friendly Kid is because that's what my dad is always saying about me. Image. Rowley's dad. End image. Rowley's dad. Rowley, you're an awesome friendly kid. Like I mentioned already, Greg is my best friend, which makes my daddy my second best friend. But I don't tell him that because I don't want to hurt his feelings. Image. Rowley and his daddy. End image. Now that I brought up my dad, I should mention he doesn't seem to like Greg all that much. And the reason I get that feeling is because my dad's always saying it. Image. Rowley's dad. Rowley and his mother. End image. Rowley's dad. I do not like Greg. But that's only because my dad doesn't really get Greg's sense of humor. Image. Greg and Rowley and his dad playing. End image. Right now, you're probably thinking, hey, Rowley, I thought this book was supposed to be about you. Well, you're right. So, from now on, I promise there's going to be a lot more Rowley in there. The first thing you need to know about me is that I live with my mom and dad in a house at the top of Surrey Street, which is the same street my best friend Greg lives on. I already talked about my dad, but my mom is pretty great too because she feeds me healthy food and helps me keep my body clean. Image. Rowley's mom cleaning him. End image. Yeah. Every morning I walk to school with my friend Greg. We usually have a total blast when we're together, but sometimes I do things that annoy him. Image. Rowley and Greg. Rowley. Stop whistling. But what really gets on Greg's nerves is when I copy him. So I'm probably not gonna let him know about this journal because it's just gonna make him mad. Anyway, writing in this book is a lot of work, so that's all I'm gonna do for today. But tomorrow, I'll put a little more Greg in here because, like I said, we're best friends. My second entry. Okay, so bad news. Greg found out about my diary. I guess I felt kinda proud that I had What in the world does that say? Oh, it's one of those weird doodads. So to say my own journal, it says toy. My own journal, and wanted to show him. But just like I predicted, it made him mad. Image. Rowley. Showing Greg his diary. Greg said I totally ripped him off. And that he was gonna be sure to gonna sue me for stealing his idea. I said, well, go ahead and try, because you're not the first person to write in a diary. Image. Greg mad at Rowley, and image. Then Greg said it's a journal, not a diary. And then he whipped me with the book. Image. Greg whapping Rowley with his book and image thing. I told Greg if he was gonna be a jerk, then I wouldn't say nice things about him in my journal. Then I showed him what I had written so far. At first, he seemed annoyed because I always forget to draw noses on people, but then he said my book gave him an idea. Greg said one day he's gonna be rich and famous, and everyone will want to know his whole life story. And he said I could be the one to write it. I said I thought that's what your journal is for, and he said that's his autobiography, but my book could be his biography. Greg said there are going to be a lot of biographies about him one day, but he'd give me the chance to write the first one. I thought that sounded like a great idea because I'm Greg's best friend, and no one knows him better than me. Image. Craig and Rowley. End imagey thing. So, I'm going to start this book again with a new title, and now my main character is going to be Greg instead of me. But don't worry, I'm still going to be in it too. A lot. Diary, oh my. Diary of Greg Heffley. Image. Greg Heffley. By Greg Heffley's best friend, Rowley Jefferson. Image of Rowley Jefferson. Early life. Most biographies about presidents and famous people start with a chapter called Early Life. Well, the problem is that I didn't meet Greg until the 4th grade, so I don't know a lot about what happened to him before then. I've seen a few photos hanging on the walls in Greg's house, and from what I can tell, he was a regular baby, and if he did anything important when he was just little, you can't really tell from looking at the pictures. Image. Photos hanging in Greg's house. End image. Anyway, fast forward to right before the start of 4th grade, and now this biography is going to get a lot more detailed. We used to live in a whole different state, but then my dad got a job and we had to move. My family bought a new house at the top of Surrey Street, and we moved in over the summer. The first few days, I didn't leave the house because I was scared about being in a new place. Image. Greg at their home on Surrey Street. End image. I know you're probably wondering, well, when is he gonna do something or meet Greg? But just wait, because I'm getting to that. My mom said maybe I should try to make some friends, and she even bought me a book called How to Make Friends in New Places to help me do it. The book had all kinds of things like knock-knock jokes to help a kid like me meet new people. But the tricks in the book didn't really work on Greg. Image. Greg and Rowley. Greg. Knock, knock. Hey, I said, knock, knock. Did you hear me say, knock, knock? Rowley. Mom, there's some weirdo kid at the door. Luckily, me and Greg became friends anyway. I told Greg I lived in the new house at the top of the hill, and he said that was kind of bad news for me, because when our lot was empty, he planted a flag there so that now he owns my house. Plus everything in it. Image. Rowley and Greg playing with a flag. End image. But later on, my dad told me that wasn't true, and then he went to Greg's house to get my bike back. Image. Rowley riding a bike with his dad. End image. I'm pretty sure that's the first time my dad told me what he thought about Greg. Image. Rowley's dad and Rowley. End image thing. These image things are kind of pointless, but I'll read them anyway because they're here. Rowley's dad. I don't like that Greg guy, but I like Greg a lot. He's always thinking of hilarious things, like making me laugh right after I take a big gulp of milk. Image. Greg and Rowley. End image. Rowley. Plus, Greg is always playing wacky pranks on me, and they usually make me laugh pretty hard, too. Image. Greg and Rowley. Greg. Haha. I don't get it. So, I'll bet you can tell me why me and Greg have been best friends since 4th grade. I even got us a locket to make it official, but Greg says those things are for girls, and that's why he won't wear his half. Best friends. Well, I could probably fill up a whole book with all the zany things me and Greg do, but since this is a biography, I should probably write some stuff about his family. Greg is a mom and a dad, just like I do, but they're pretty regular parents, so I don't have a lot to say about them. Image. Greg's parents. End image. But Greg isn't an only child like me. He's got an older brother named Roderick who has a rock band called Loaded Diaper. Some of their songs have swears in them, so my mom and dad won't let me be at the Heffley's house when Roderick has band practice. Image. The rock band Loaded Diaper. End image. Greg also has a little brother named Manny, who's only 3. And don't ask me why, but the first time I went to Greg's for a play date, Manny randomly pulled down his pants and showed me his bum. Image. Manny showing Rowley his butt. End image. Now, every time I see Manny, he acts like we have this big secret or something, which makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. Image. Greg, Rowley, and Manny. End image. Manny. Shh. Anyway, I guess that wraps up the first chapter of Greg's biography. And if you're thinking, Rowley, when are we going to get to the exciting stuff? Then just wait. The time I had my first sleepover at Greg's. After me and Greg met, we had a few play dates at my house and a few play dates at his house. Oh yeah, I forgot. Greg doesn't like it when I call them play dates. So I will have to change the next draft, or else I'm gonna get whacked again. Anyway, me and Greg hung out a lot at each other's houses, but then one day he invited me to his house for a sleepover. I was pretty worried because I'd never slept away from home before. In fact, I wasn't even sure sleeping in my own bed yet because I was scared. Image. Greg, Rowley, and Manny at the sleepover. End image. I told my mom I was too nervous to stay at Greg's, but I got a little less nervous when she said I could take carrots with me. Image. Rowley getting carrots from his mom. End image. When I got to Greg's, we played in his room for a while, but at 9, Mrs. Heffley said it was time to go to bed, and she said we had to sleep in the basement. Well, now, I was super nervous because I think basements are really creepy. Image. Rowley's dad, Greg, and Rowley in the basement. As soon as Mrs. Heffley turned the lights off, Greg said he needed to tell me something important. He told me there's a half man, half goat that lives in the woods in our neighborhood, so I probably shouldn't go outside alone at night. Image. Greg scaring Rowley. End image. Roderick. Ho-wah! Scrape, scrape, screech. Well, I was not happy to hear the news, and I really wished someone had told my parents about this goat guy before we moved into the neighborhood. Anyway, the goat thing got me totally spooked, so I hid under the covers. But I think Greg got pretty spooked too because he crawled under them with me. Image. Greg and Rowley scared. End image. Then, all of a sudden, there was this crazy noise right outside the window, and it sounded exactly how a half man, half goat would sound. Me and Greg didn't want to get eaten by this goat guy, so we got out of there as fast as we could. But we almost died anyway because we tripped each other running up the stairs. Image. Greg and Rowley running upstairs. Smash. End imagey thing. We locked ourselves in the laundry room so the goat man couldn't get us. But that's when we found out it wasn't the goat guy at all. It was Greg's brother, Roderick, playing a trick on us. Image. Roderick, Greg, and Rowley. End image. Roderick. Rap, rap. Okay. next part's embarrassing, but since it's a biography, I'm gonna tell this whole truth anyway. I wet my pants when we were in the basement and heard those noises outside. Mrs. Heffley gave me an extra pair of Greg's underwear, but they were too small. So my dad had to come get me and bring me home in the middle of the night. Image. Greg being dropped back home. End image. It was a long time before I was allowed to go to Greg's for another sleepover, but that's a longer story, and I'm not even sure there's room for that one in this book. The time I saved Greg from 7 Larkin's birthday. Oh, sorry. The time I saved Greg from... Oh, it does say 7. Tevin? Oh, the time hold on. The time I saved Greg from Tevin Larkin's birthday. There we go. Yes, Tevin. That must be some kid's name. There's a kid named Tevin Larkin who lives over on Speen Street. And last summer, his mom invited me and Greg to Tevin's birthday party. We didn't want to go because Tevin is hyper, but both our moms said we had to go. It turned out that me and Greg were the only kids invited to Tevin's party, but we didn't know that until we already got there. Image. Tevin. Tevin's mom, Greg, and Rowley at Tevin's party. End imagey thing. After we gave Tevin his presents, his mom said it was time for party activities. The first activity was to watch this movie about a guy who could turn into a bear and an eagle and a bunch of other animals. Image. Tevin, Greg, and Rowley watching a movie. End image. When the movie was over, Tevin wanted to watch it again, but me and Greg told Tevin's mom we didn't want to watch the movie again for a second time, so she said we could move on to the next activity, which is pin the tail on the donkey. Well, that just made Tevin mad. He got all wound up and started acting like the guy in the movie who could turn into any animal. Image. Tevin, mad at Greg and Rowley. End image. Tevin. Roar! I guess Tevin's mom was used to this sort of thing, but me and Greg didn't know what we were supposed to do. We asked Mrs. Larkin if she could take us home, but she said there was still 2 hours to go before the party was done. So we went out the back door and waited in the yard for Tevin to calm down. But eventually, Tevin found us, and now he was acting totally nuts. Image. Tevin, Greg, and Rowley. Tevin. Roar! I took a few steps back to get out of Tevin's way, but that's when I fell into the giant ditch. Luckily, the ditch wasn't too deep, or I probably would have broken some bones. But when I got to my feet, I heard this buzzing noise all around me. Turned out there was a hornet nest at the bottom of this ditch, and they were all stirred up because I fell in them. I got stung 12 times, and 2 of the stings were inside my mouth. Image. Tevin, Greg, and Rowley stung by hornets. End image. Mrs. Larkin drove me home early, and Greg hitched a ride too. Anyway, Greg's always saying he owes me for getting him out of there. So I put it in this book in case he ever needs to be reminded. Greg's accomplishments. Every biography I've ever read for school has a chapter called Accomplishments. So I figure I'd better add that in here before I forget. The problem is that Greg is only a kid and most of his accomplishments haven't happened yet. So I'll leave some blank spaces here so I can fill it in later on. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10. The time me and Greg disturbed an ancient burial ground. If you were spooked out by the Goat Man story from before, then you might want to skip this part. Okay, if you are still reading, remember, I warned you. One time, me and Greg were playing Vikings and ninjas in the woods, and then some teenagers came by and ruined our fun. Image, Greg and Rowley playing Vikings and ninjas. And image, Greg. Nerds. But that's not even the scary part yet, so keep reading. Me and Greg went further back in the woods to get away from those guys. Greg said we should build a fort so if they came looking for us, we could protect ourselves. So we spent the rest of the afternoon making a fort out of sticks and logs. Image, Greg and Rowley making a fort out of sticks and logs. End imagey thing. Greg said we should put some rocks in our fort in case things got really bad, but it was starting to get dark and there weren't a lot of rocks lying around in the woods anyway. But then I tripped over something, and guess what? It was a big rock. Image, Rowley tripping over a rock. I told Greg I thought I sprained my ankle, but he was a lot more worried about the rock than my injury. Greg said it wasn't a rock, it was a gravestone, and we just disturbed an ancient burial ground. Image, Greg and Rowley looking at the gravestone. End image. I guess you already knew that was coming because it was in the title of this chapter. I'll probably change it later on, so don't give the surprise away. Anyway, me and Greg were totally spooked out by this ancient burial ground thing, and by now it was really dark out, so we were extra scared. But Greg must have totally forgotten about my ankle because he took off and I couldn't keep up with him. Image, Greg takes off, leaving Rowley behind. End image, Greg. Zing! I kept waiting for Greg to come back, but he never did. Luckily, my parents called Greg's house to ask where I was, and that helped him remember that I was still out there. Image, Rowleys Parents calling Greg. End image. And just to show you what a great pal Greg is, he let my parents borrow his flashlight and pointed them in the right direction. End image. Image, Rowley's parents looking for Rowley. End image. An even more scary story. Okay, while I'm on the topic of scary stuff, I want to share a story about something that happened a couple of years ago. One time, I was at my grandpa's log cabin with my dad for the weekend, and we took a hike, and I got kinda dirty. Well, technically, it's my dad's cabin now, because my grandpa died the year before. I called my grandpa Bambi, and the reason I called him that is because when I was 2, I couldn't say grandpa. Image, Rowley, with his parents, and Bambi. End image. Rowley, Bambi! But when I got older and I could say grandpa, nobody would let me change it. And when my grandpa got older, it's the only word he really said. Image, Rowley, his parents, and Bambi. End image. Rowley's dad. We love you, Dad. Grandpa. Bambi. So, anyway, back to the story. After I got dirty from the hike, my dad said I had to take a shower. But Bambi's cabin is really old, and it doesn't have a shower. It just has one of those creepy, old-fashioned tubs. Image. Rowley filling the tub with water. End image. After I filled up the tub with water and got in, here's what happened. I heard footsteps coming down the hall, and I thought it was my dad bringing me a towel or something. Image, Rowley. End image. Rowley, Dad? Clomp, clomp, clomp. Then the door opened real slow, but guess what? No one was even there. Image, Rowley. End image. I jumped out of the tub and ran around the house looking everywhere for my dad. And if you're thinking, Rowley, the door thing was your dad playing a trick on you? Well, guess what? It wasn't. My dad was getting some milk at the store, and he didn't come back until like a half hour later. Image, Rowley's dad and Rowley. End image. I told my dad what happened with the door, and he said it was probably just the wind. But I know what it was. The Ghost of Bambi. Image, Bambi's ghost. End image. Bambi's ghost. Bambi! The time Greg played a hilarious prank on me. Okay, I know the last chapter didn't have a lot of Greg in it, but I wanted to mention that story real quick because the Bambi thing totally freaked me out. If you like scary stuff, then you're in luck because this one is pretty scary too. One day, me and Greg were hanging out at my house, and Greg told me he saw on the news that there was a burglar going around breaking into people's homes. Image, Greg and Rowley hanging out. End image. Then he said that he had to go home for dinner, and once he left, I started getting scared because my parents weren't around. But here's the thing. I found out later that Greg was pretending to leave. He shut the front door, but then stayed inside my house. Image, Greg shutting the door without going out it. End image. He took off his shoes and walked up the stairs super quiet so I couldn't hear him. Then he started stomping around real loud upstairs. At first, I thought it was the Ghost of Bambi all over again. Then I realized it was probably that burglar Greg told me about, and I almost peed my pants for the second time in this biography. Image, Greg stomping loudly. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs, and I ran into the garage to hide from the burglar. It was pitch black in the garage, but I didn't want to make a lot of noise until I was sure that guy was gone. Then all of a sudden the door to the garage opened real slow, and I knew the burglar was going to get me if I didn't do something. So I did something. So I whacked him in the face with my dad's tennis racket and made a run for it. Image, Rowley whacking Greg in the face with a tennis racket. And picture thing. Then I ran out of the front door and went to Mrs. Monroe's house next door to tell her to call the cops because someone had broken into our house. But then Greg came out of my house, and that's when I found out the whole thing was just one of his hilarious pranks. Image, Rowley, Mrs. Monroe, and Greg. End image. Greg was mad at me for 2 whole weeks, and he said I should have known from the way the footsteps sounded that it was him and not a burglar. I guess he's got a pretty good point about that, since he is always playing wacky pranks on me. So, I feel kinda bad about whacking him with the tennis racket, but not really. Another time Greg got mad at me. Okay, that last story made me remember another time Greg got mad at me. Me and Greg were walking home from school a few months ago, and there were slugs everywhere because it had just rained the night before. And whenever there are slugs lying around, Greg chases me with one. Ugh. Image, Greg chasing Rowley with a slug. End image, Rowley, scream! Ah! No thanks! I guess it's pretty funny if you think about it, but it's never so funny when it's happening to you. Luckily, I'm really fast when someone's chasing me with a slug, so I got away from Greg by climbing up on the big rock in Mrs. Yee's front yard. Greg tried to get me to climb down, but I stayed right up there where I was. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image, Greg, if you come down, I probably won't make you eat this slug. Greg tried to fling the slug at me, but he lost his balance and almost fell into a giant puddle in front of the rock. He was stuck, and I felt bad for him because he is my best friend after all. Image, Greg and Rowley. End image. I got down from the rock and tried to help Greg. He told me to pull him back up to his feet, but I guess I heard him wrong. I grabbed him by his feet, and that turned out to be a pretty dumb move. Image, Rowley grabbing Greg by his feet. End image. I don't know what Greg was gonna do once he got out of that puddle, but I didn't want to stick around to find out. So, I ran to my house and locked myself in my room and didn't come out until Greg got called home for dinner. Image, Rowley running from Greg. End image. The next day, Greg said he was gonna get me back when I least expected it. I just hope Greg forgot, because when it comes to paybacks, he's got a good imagination. the time when Greg created a special award for me. Okay, the last 2 chapters were about times Greg got mad at me, but this chapter is the total opposite. This one's about the time when I did something Greg thought was really awesome, so then he did something really awesome for me. Anyway, this one Saturday last autumn, me and Greg were supposed to hang out at my house, but he said he couldn't because he had to clean his garage. Then he said if I came and helped him, we'd be done twice as quick. But I said, no way, I want to clean your garage. Thanks anyway. Image. Greg and Rowley on the phone. End image. Then Greg said, if I helped him, he'd give me half of his Halloween candy. Well, that was a really big deal to me because my parents went through all my candy on Halloween night and they barely left me anything. Image. Rowley's parents and Rowley. Rowley. 3 pieces of candy. That's plenty, Rowley. Rowley. Groan. But I knew Greg still had a ton of candy because his parents didn't make him throw out anything. So I told him, okay, I'll be right over. Cleaning Greg's garage was hard work, and it looked like 3 hours. After we were done, Greg said, okay, now let's go hang out at your place. Image. Greg and Rowley cleaning the garage. End image. I said, hey, what about the candy? And Greg said, oh, yeah, I forgot. But I knew that was going to happen because whenever Greg owes me stuff, he forgets. We went up to Greg's mom and he got his bag of candy out of the wardrobe. Oh, sorry, we went up to Greg's room and got his candy out of the wardrobe. Image. Rowley and Greg getting his candy out of the wardrobe. But when we emptied out the bag, it was almost all wrappers. Image. Rowley and Greg emptying the bag full of empty candy wrappers. End image. The only things Greg's left were 3 gobstoppers and a little box of raisins. I told Greg he promised me a ton of candy, and he said he only promised half. Then he said, a deal's a deal, and he gave me a gobstopper and the box of raisins. Image. Greg gives Rowley a gobstopper and a box of raisins. End image. I told Greg I was going to tell his mom, and then Greg got real worried because he said his mom would be mad at him if she found out he ate all of his Halloween candy already. Image. Rowley and Greg worried about being reported. End image. Greg said he was going to give me something way better than candy, and he got out a piece of paper and a pencil and started drawing at his desk. Image. Rowley and Greg drawing at his desk. End image. When Greg was done, he handed me the piece of paper, and here's what was on it. Greg said, good boy awards are super rare, and you have to do something really awesome to get one. Image. Rowley's Good Boy Award. End image. He said I was extra lucky because this was the first ever Good Boy Award he'd ever given out and it was gonna be worth a lot of money someday. Well, I knew Greg was just trying to get out of giving me the candy he owed me, so I tried to act like I thought it was Good Boy Award thing was dumb, but somehow Greg could tell I thought it was kind of cool. Image, Rowley getting his award from Greg. Well, that was only the first Good Boy Award, but I got a lot more. For the next few weeks, Greg made me one every time I did something awesome for him. Image, Rowley and Greg with more awards. After a while, I had a ton of Good Boy Awards, and I kept them in a binder in clear plastic sheets so they wouldn't get messed up at all. Image, Rowley's Awards in a binder. End image. But then I started to feel like maybe my Good Boy Awards weren't that rare anymore, since I had so many of them. Plus, Greg was making the new ones a lot quicker than he made the first one, and they didn't seem all that special anymore. Image, another Good Boy Award. End image. So, one time when Greg called and asked me to come down and help him rake the yard, I told him I couldn't because I had homework. And Greg said, that's too bad, because he came up with a totally new kind of Good Boy Award, and he was sad I wasn't gonna get to see it. Image, Greg and Rowley on the phone. End image. I was like, at least tell me about it, Greg. And he said he couldn't because it was top secret and he didn't want to ruin the surprise. Then he said he was going to call Scotty Douglas and see if he wanted to help rake the yard, and said, okay, I'll be right over. Well, I wish I knew we had to rake the front yard and the backyard. It was a lot of work. Plus, I had to do it myself because Greg was busy making the new award. Image, Rowley raking the yard. End image. When I was finally done, Greg gave me my award, and I've got to say, it was even more awesome than I thought it would be. Image, Rowley getting another award from Greg. End image. This new one was called a Super Good Boy Award. Greg said one Super Good Boy Award was worth 50 regular Good Boy Awards, and I could totally see why. Image, a Super Good Boy Award. End image. In the next few weeks, I earned a bunch of Super Good Boy Awards, but after a while, even those didn't seem all that special anymore. Besides, I was spending a lot of time doing stuff for Greg, and I wasn't getting my own chores done. But every time I told Greg I didn't need any more Good Boy Awards, he'd come up with something new, and then I'd have to have that. Image, Rowleys Awards. End image. After a while, I had so many awards that my binder was stuffed, and I couldn't get new ones in it anymore. So, I told Greg I wasn't gonna try to earn any more awards, no matter what. But Greg said that's okay because he would just recycle my old awards. Image, Greg asking Rowley to recycle the awards. I was pretty mad because I worked hard for those awards, and now Greg said they were totally worthless. But I was still curious about this new system that I asked him about it. Greg said the new idea was called Lil Goodies, and it was a point system, and there wasn't any paper involved. Greg said that every time I did something nice for him, I'd get a Lil Goodie point. And once I got 50 Lil Goodies points, I'd get a fantastic prize. I was like, okay, what's the prize? And Greg said he couldn't tell me because it was under a sheet in his bedroom. Image, Rowley and Greg with the prize in Greg's bedroom. End image. Well, I couldn't figure out what was under the sheet, but I could guess. And a lot of my guesses were things I really wanted. Image, Rowley guessing his prize. So, I spent about a month doing lots of things for Greg, and he gave me a Lil Goodie point each time, like he promised. Image, Rowley and Greg. Greg, ding! Lil Goodie award! End photo. Rowley, pant. Eventually, I got to 50 Lil Goodies, and I told Greg I was ready to turn them in for the fantastic prize. But Greg told me that since it was the first day of the month, my Lil Goodie total got reset back to 0. And I said, well, you never told me about that rule. And he said, well, you never asked. I was really mad, and I yanked the sheet off the fantastic prize so I could see what it was. But guess what? It was a laundry basket filled with dirty clothes. Image, Rowley and Greg with Rowley's prize. End photo. I told Greg he was a crummy friend for making me do all that work for a phony prize, but he said the laundry thing was a test to see if I'd peak, and that I failed that test. Then he said the real prize was locked in the basement, and that now I was gonna have to earn 100 Lil Goodies to get it. All I can say is I'm not a fool. I'm gonna take my time earning these Lil Goodies, so if Greg thinks I'm in a rush to get that fantastic prize, he's gonna be sadly disappointed. By the time I found out Greg's a lousy... Oh, sorry, new title. The time I found out Greg is a lousy study partner. Okay, I know this is Greg's official biography, and I don't want to put any negative stuff about him in here, but Greg, if you are reading this, I just need to say you are a terrible study partner. I hope that doesn't hurt your feelings, but somebody has to tell you. Most of the time, I don't really need to study for tests because I pay attention in class and I do my homework. Plus, Mom always says it's important to get a good night's sleep. So, on school nights, I have to go to bed extra early. Image, Rowley in bed. End image. But this one time, we had a really hard chapter in maths, and I had trouble paying attention in class. that week. That's mostly because Greg moved to the seat right behind me. Image. Mrs. Beck, Greg, and Rowley. End image. The night before the test, I knew was going to have to go over the chapter and do some specific problems at home. But when I told Greg my plan, he said we should study together. I wasn't sure that was such a good idea, because when it comes to school stuff, sometimes it's hard for Greg to focus. But Greg said, we're best friends, and best friends study together. So I guess that made sense to me. Well, the first thing we had to do was find a place to study. Greg said we couldn't be at his house because his brother Roderick was having band practice. And Greg was banned from my house because he played a practical joke where he put cling film over our toilet bowl, and he got my dad pretty good with that one. Image. Rowley and Greg pranking Rowley's dad. End photo doodad thing. Rowley and Greg. Greg said, we should 90 to the library. What the heck does that mean? Greg said we should go to the library because it was quiet there and nobody would bug us. So Mrs. Heffley gave us a ride to the library after dinner, and we found a table where we could do some of our work. We got out the books, and I said maybe we should do practice problems to see what we needed to work on. But Greg said he hadn't even read the chapter yet, so we needed to start from the beginning. Image. Greg and Rowley reading. End image. Well, that was kind of a waste of time for me, so I told Greg he could read the chapter on his own. To catch up. But Greg said I was being a bad study partner and that we were supposed to do everything together. I said, okay, fine. Let's start from the beginning then. And go through the whole thing again. But Greg said before we got started, we needed to plan our study breaks so we didn't get too stressed out. Image. Greg and Rowley planning study breaks. End image. Then he said we should start with a break so we'd get off on the right foot. And that's what we did, even though it seemed like a bad idea to me. Image. Greg and Rowley taking a study break. End image. After like 10 minutes, I said we need to get to work because it's a long chapter and we have a lot to get through. Well, don't ask me why, but Greg pinched his nose with his fingers and said the exact same thing I said, but with a really annoying voice. Image. Rowley and Greg. Rowley.
I'm Rowley, and we need to get to work because it's a long chapter and we have a lot to do.
Stop copying me. I told Greg to stop copying me, but that just made him copy me even more. Finally, I got smart and started reading the chapter out loud. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Rowley. Angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. A right angle is 90 degrees. Greg, angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. A right angle is 90 degrees. After a while, Greg figured out what I was doing and he stopped copying me. I told him maybe it would be better if we both just read the chapter quietly, but Greg said that wasn't his learning style and he needed to make things fun so you could to make them stick. I said, "What do you mean?" And Greg said he knew a way to make learning maths to a game. First, he balled up a piece of notebook paper. He said we should take turns reading a few words from the chapter and then toss the paper ball back and forth to each other. So, we tried it, and it worked for a little while, I guess. Image, Rowley and Greg, and image. Greg, two angles that have a sum of... Rowley, make a straight line. 180 degrees. But whenever someone dropped the paper ball, Greg said we had to start the whole page over again. Image, Greg and Rowley playing the ball up paper game. End image. Rowley, oops. And sometimes I think Greg was trying to make me drop the ball on purpose. Image, Greg hits Rowley. End image. I told Greg we were wasting too much time and we needed to do this another way. And Greg said he didn't care how we studied as long as it was fun. So I told Greg a trick my dad taught me. He said that whenever I had trouble remembering something, I should make up a song to make it easier. Then I sang the song I made up to help me remember how to get the area of a circle. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. There was this one time when there were these 8 bunnies, and they hopped up this hill. And then 3 of them slid back down. And then 4 bunnies got tired and fell asleep. And then the last bunny got to the top of the hill and said, "The area of a circle is PR squared." Greg said that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard, and I said, "Well, if it's so dumb then, why do I have a 95 in maths and you only have a 72? Image, Greg and Rowley singing the math song. I guess Greg didn't have a good answer to that, and he said it was time for another break. So we played video games on the library computer until some grown-up reported us to the librarian for making too much noise. Image, Greg and Rowley and the librarian in the library. Greg, ha, in your face. Blam, blam, blam. Rowley, blap, blap, blap. When we got back to the table, Greg said we wouldn't study Greg said we weren't studying the right way and that he had an idea of how we could do it better. He said he'd read the first half of the chapter and I'd read the last half, and then we could team up to do the test. I said, well, you're not allowed to talk during tests, so I didn't see how this was going to work. Then Greg told me about these monks who can transmit their thoughts through the air if they concentrate really hard. Image, Rowley and Greg thinking about the monks and photo caption thing. So we tried doing it, but I guess I couldn't concentrate good enough to make it work. Greg said we needed to figure out a different way to communicate during the test. Image, Greg and Rowley trying to communicate. End captiony thing. Greg, hamburger. I said if we studied the chapter, we wouldn't need to communicate. But once again, Greg had something in his head, and he wouldn't let it go. He made up this whole system of sneezes and coughs and stuff, so we could talk to each other during the test without our teacher, Ms. Beck, noticing anything. But there was a lot to remember, so I wrote it all down. Image, sneeze and cough. Cheat sheet. End image. I said, well, what if one of us needs to ask the other guy a question? And Greg said, he just put a question mark at the end. And I said, well, we don't have a signal for a question mark. And Greg said it could be a fart. I told Greg I didn't think I could fart if I didn't really need to, and Greg told me to try anyway, and I did, but nothing came out. Image, Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg, grunt. So, Greg told me some different foods I could eat for breakfast that would make it easier to do question mark farts. Image, Rowley, Greg, and foods that make it easy to do a question mark. End image. Well, that idea made me anxious because the last time I went to Greg's, we drank a lot of soda and tried to burp the alphabet, and I got sick on letter B and had to go home early. Image, Rowley and Greg burping the alphabet. End image, Rowley. Yeah. Yeah. Greg said, okay, if you couldn't fart, the question mark, then it would be okay to make a fake fart noise under my armpit. Image, Rowley and Greg. Greg. Blap! That's when I told Greg I thought this was a bad idea, and it was cheating to send each other secret messages anyway. Greg said I was being a goody two-shoes, and that the only reason I wanted to get a good grade in maths was because I was at a teacher's pet, and I was in love with Miss Beck. I said I was not in love with Miss Beck, but that I just like her personally, and the way she smells also. Image, Greg, Rowley, and Miss Beck, end image. So, Greg said that proves I'm in love with Miss Beck, and then he sang that stupid song about two people sitting in a tree. I knew Greg was trying to make me mad, but for some reason, the song didn't really bother me that much. Image, Rowley and Greg, end image. Greg. Rowley and Miss Beck sitting in a tree. Kissing. I guess Greg got mad that I wasn't getting mad, so he stopped singing. So he started singing even more. Image, Rowley and Greg studying for their math test. End image, Greg. I'm Rowley studying for the test. Oh yeah, I'm studying real hard. Yeah. I tried to tune him out, but he got louder and louder. Image, Rowley and Greg, end image. Greg, oh yeah! Now I'm plugging my ears so I can't hear. Greg, but I can hear him. Anyway, yeah. Then I went into the bathroom and tried to study in there, but Greg followed me in. Image, Greg and Rowley in the bathroom. End image, Greg, yeah! I'm Rowley, trying to study. In a bathroom stall. Yeah. But I guess somebody else complained because the librarian came in and told us we both had to get out of there. Now, image. The librarian, Greg, and Rowley in the bathroom. End image. Then she said if we made any more noise, she was going to have to call our parents and have them come and get us. Well, that sounded great to me, but I don't think Greg was ready to go home, so he promised we'd quiet down. I really didn't want to sit at the same table as Greg anymore, so I moved to one of the desks farther down, with a divider between us. But Greg sat right across from me. I was starting to get some work done, but then Greg slid a note under the divider. Image, Greg sliding Rowley a note. End image. He bad a maths question, so I answered him, and he had a maths question, so I answered him and passed the note back. Hey Rowley, what do angles and quadrilaterals add up to? 360 degrees. And then Greg asked me another question, but I didn't really mind because this was a million times better than the way we were doing things before. Then Greg slid another note back, and it had another question on it that didn't have anything to do with math at all. Check 1. I'm embarrassed I wet the bed last night. Yes? No? Well, I checked the no box because I didn't wet the bed. I slid the note to Greg, but then he wrote something on it and slid it back. Yes, no. Ha ha ha! You're not embarrassed? You wet the bed? That made me kind of mad because that's not what I meant. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time explaining myself because I really needed to get back to studying my homework. So Greg wrote another note and slid it under the divider. Truth or dare? Truth, dare. I didn't want to take a dare from Greg, so I picked truth. But I didn't like the question Greg came up with. Truth. Dare. Are you in love with Miss Beck? Okay. I switched to dare. Then Greg dared me to get him a drink from the vending machine. I didn't know that was the way truth or dare actually worked, but I was just glad Greg didn't make me answer that stupid question. Image. Greg sliding Rowley a note under the divider. End photo. After I got Greg his drink, I did a little more studying, but then he started up with the notes again. Hey, Rowley. That's you. Image cartoon. End image. Well, I didn't like that, so I set back a drawing of my own. Image. Cartoon. End image. Oh, yeah? Well, that's you. And then Greg drew another picture of me, and I threw another one right back at him. Whee! This is you. Image. Cartoon. Cartoon. You. After a while, we filled up 2 whole pages of drawings. Image. Cartoon of Greg and Rowley. And image. Cartoon of Greg and Rowley. Greg tried to start a new page of drawings, but I was just ignoring him. And I guess he didn't like that because he knew he kept trying to get my attention. Image. Greg trying to get Rowley's attention. End image. I decided to move to a new spot that wasn't so close to Greg. I was glad I could finally get some peace and quiet, but that did not last long. Image. Rowley in a new spot. End image. If you're wondering what that bang was all about, well, here's what happened. I got up and moved to another desk, so... And some grown-up took my spot. And I guess Greg thought it was still me, and he tied the guy's shoelaces together. Image. Greg tying a guy's shoelaces together. Then the guy stood up, and he fell backward. Image. The guy falling backward. End image. After that happened, Greg got out of there as fast as he could. I figured I'd better get out of there too, because I didn't want the guy to think I was the one who tied his shoelaces together. Image. Greg and Rowley were running out of the library. End image. I followed Greg into the children's section where there was an empty table. He put his stuff at one end and I sat down at the other, so I didn't have to be too close to him. Greg said we should take another study break, but I said I was gonna keep working. Then Greg balled up a piece of paper and tried to throw it in the trash can across the room. Bing! He missed, but kept shooting balled up pieces of paper, which made it harder for me to concentrate on my work. Image. Greg shooting balled up paper at the garbage can. End image. Then Greg finally got one in, and he said he bet I couldn't make the same shot as he did. But I told him I really needed to study. He said I was too scared to try, and then he started acting like a chicken. Image. Rowley and Greg. End image. Greg. Block, block, block that one. Shoot! End thingamabobber. I tried to ignore him, but it wasn't so easy, especially when he got up on the table. Image. Rowley and Greg. Greg. Then, all of a sudden, Greg sat down on the table and started making grunting noises. At first, I thought he might be having a bathroom episode or emergency, but when he got up, there was an egg. Image. Greg showing Rowley his egg. Well, I didn't want Greg to lay another egg, so I balled up a piece of paper and tossed it at the same can. And I wasn't looking to see if it went in, but I guess it did. Image. Rowley and Greg tossing a balled up paper at the garbage can. Greg said my shot was total luck, and there was no way I could make it go again if I tried. But I decided I wasn't gonna try again. Image. Greg convincing Rowley to try again. End image. Rowley. I'm retired. Greg said I just couldn't retire, but said, yeah, I could, and it was very... What in the world? Greg said I couldn't retire, but I said, yeah, I could, and it was his own fault for giving me the idea anyway. One time I had my birthday party at the bowling alley, and Greg hit a strike with his first ball. Then he retired, and it ruined the game for everyone else. Image. Greg, Rowley, and many friends at the bowling alley. Greg. I'm retired. When Greg couldn't get me to unretire, he tried making a backward shot instead, but he went through like a million pieces of paper, and he couldn't even come close to the garbage can. I was glad he was leaving me alone because I was actually getting a lot of work done. Image. Rowley and Greg making backward shots at the garbage. End image. I finished the practice test, and then I was going to go on over my notes from class, but that's when I found that Greg was getting all his paper from was my notes. Image. Rowley, Greg, and Rowley's notes. Well, that made me really mad because Miss Beck said we were allowed to look at our notes during the test. So I got down on the floor and started picking up all the little balled up pieces of paper. I figured maybe I could smooth the papers out when I got home and then tape them back together in my notebook. But Greg just kept shooting more and more, and finally got one into the... by bouncing it off my... something. Oh, off my... it doesn't say. Image. Rowley and Greg taking shots. End image. Well, that made me really mad, and I started chasing Greg with that egg he laid. But I guess we were making too much noise, and that got us in trouble again with the librarian. Image. Greg, Rowley, and the librarian. Greg, screaming, "Ah!" She made me call my parents to come pick us up. That was fine with me. I had to stay up for 2 more hours, uncrinkling and unscrambling my notes and taping them into my notebook. And I was up another half hour researching my stuff on that's the end of that volume. My dad's computer. Image. Rowley on the internet or the World Wide Web. And we'll stop there for now and pick it back up with the time I made the biggest mistake of my life. All right, well, that's the end for the first volume. Stay tuned for the next one. It probably won't be before Christmas because I have a pile of baking to do, both here and at the actual bakery, and I gotta help my sister move tomorrow. So, till next time, whenever that is, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see ya!